ready.
Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of
They Might Be Self-Aware.
I am not a robot, I think. I am...
Hunter.
Hold on. Hunter Powers. Joined by... Definitely not a robot.
Absolutely not a robot. Daniel Bishop.
Hey, Daniel, how goes it?
It's going really well. I think we've got a good episode queued up for you all today, where we're going to talk about some stuff.
Stuff? What kind of stuff?
Well, Midjourney. It makes AI art, depending on how you feel about makes and art, but it's printing out some pretty pictures, and you and I are going to talk about if it's still the go-to for image generation in the AI landscape.
Well, in that AI creative landscape, we'll also take a look at, can AI really replicate human emotion in these creative works, or does it lacks the depth?
Now, I know someone who's gone very deep, all the way deep, almost all the way deep. James.
Or as Jim, as his friends call him.
Jim Cameron thinks that it's time to cozy up with AI and is joining the Stability AI board to explore new frontiers in filmmaking.
Well, if Jim's in, I'm in. But will this, explosion of AI generated content, is it going to lead to a reset in how we value art?
Right. And as we get there, we are accelerating. At some point, we're going to hit the singularity, which we might have already done because AI is starting to improve its own hardware.
All I know is I'm
Still not a robot.
because you are listening to
They Might Be Self-Aware.
Midjourney. Still your favorite image generator?
Yeah, definitely. It's the one that I go to first and foremost. I have a couple of the offline generators. Flux, which came out not too long ago. Very cool, very impressive. I've got a bunch of Laura's for specific art styles for a couple other offline generators. But it's mostly Midjourney. 90% of the time, I just go there.
What, didn't Stability have one?
Yeah, so Stable Diffusion is powering a lot of the different models out there, or something that's kind of Stable Diffusion based.
I never ran Stable Diffusion locally. Did you ever?
Yeah. Yep, I've got, not at the moment actually, I think I deleted them all, but I had a couple different versions of a couple of these different models. Some people made it really easy to put up a UI that the average Joe is able to use, as long as you have a beefy enough computer to kind of run this, or don't mind waiting 5 minutes to get an image or something like that. It's pretty easy to get set up with these kinds of things, and you can make some really cool results. And there are features that Midjourney doesn't have, or some of them didn't have, but you can do face swapping, or you want to enhance this one specific image. Now, Midjourney lets you change one region, for example, now, or expand it out. Yeah. But the offline generators, the ones that the kind of hacker community put together, those kinds of features existed there first. And if you really want fine-tuned control over the AI art that you're creating, depending on if you like using that phrase for having an image generated by AI, yeah, that would be the way to go for the finest tuned control. For me, who just wants to see a picture of a dog with the top hat, Midjourney.
Yeah, I definitely use Midjourney more than any of the others, and Flux is probably the one that I use the second most often via what X's Grok interface. I've yet to run it locally. It's on the list of things to do, and to play with the Laura's, where you can fine tune it on a particular style. And I do have some examples. I've worked with a number of artists in the past, and I have some examples where I have large libraries of their art and their permission to potentially train Laura's to see if we can't generate things in a similar style and genre.
Yeah, that's very cool, especially the consent part from the artist.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but I actually subscribe. Midjourney has a magazine. I put them all here.
What?
There's a lot of lot of issues. I've been a day one subscriber, and
Hold on. Not everyone's watching this podcast. Please tell everyone what you just showed me.
I showed you, it's a good call, a large stack, I don't know, 20, 25 issues of the Midjourney physical, real world magazine. I was just thinking in my head that, like, I bet there are some people who don't even really know what a magazine is, because magazines are definitely they're on their way out. It's a dying thing. You see them the most at airports and a bookstore and
the 7-Eleven
tabloids
type places. Sure, the magazines are still everywhere, but I think I see what you
Does
mean.
the youth read magazines? Like when I was 12, I wanted a magazine. I wanted a Thrasher skateboarding magazine and surfing magazines and computer magazines and 2600 famous hacker zine. But like, do 12-year-olds today, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, do they have any interest in? I don't know. Do you know? I don't know any 12 or 13-year-olds to ask. I
don't have a lot of 12 and 13-year-olds that I personally know that I could
ask. But I suspect they don't.
The kids these days. And it
feels old. But anyways, back to Midjourney. So I'll show our audience.
What is in the Midjourney magazine? Is it just here's a bunch of images that somebody made with Midjourney? Or is there like any text? Okay, so it looks like most of the page is.
Most of that, yeah. And then at the bottom, we do have the prompt that went into it.
Okay, that's really interesting.
So you can flip through them and see interesting visual styles, and it gives you inspiration for things that you won't want to try. So that's some place that I find it valuable. I also just think it's interesting and watching the evolution and through.
Is it just image prompt? That's the whole magazine, or is there anything else in there?
There are some light articles about one particular creator going into a bit of detail about how they're using it.
Okay.
But one thing that's interesting.
So this isn't exactly an entirely AI generated magazine.
It's
like
not
a physical
entirely,
artifact of nothing
98%
but
AI
a person
generated.
Came up with a prompt and said, show me a picture of, whatever. And then that gets a bunch of upvotes and so on from people who are going on the site and saying, that was a cool one. And that kind of percolates up to the top. And then once a month, they take some of these top images, their prompts, presumably just completely automatically lay that out. One person does an interview. Do you think it's like an audio interview, like taken, or is it just a Discord conversation that was back and forth with like one of the people?
More likely the latter than the former. I don't know. One other interesting thing is that every issue on the spine also prints the version. So it's issue 12, but version 5.0. 5.1, 5.3 being the version of
Midjourney was used for those images. Interesting. Okay.
It's on the spine. So it's also very interesting to see the evolution. This magazine only started like a year ago or something, but there is a huge difference in the images that were coming out a year ago and the images that are coming out today. Very noticeable.
When this was made for the first time, presumably people were involved and said, let's make this. Okay, great. A layout artist or whatever, using some sort of Adobe software, probably put together. This is like what the template of a page looks like, and
Adobe Page Maker.
Here's how this all comes together. But after a really small amount of human effort, is this then completely hands off? Of we just get our one little 5 minutes of a person talking back and forth on Discord to one user.
The layout and format of the magazine has not changed in the last year, so it definitely is something that could be heavily, heavily automated. Whether or not the team there is TBD. I guess Midjourney famously has a very small team that builds the core product. What is it? It's like somewhere between like 6 and 12 people work at that company. I don't know. And maybe it's changed since last I investigated, but a really, really small team. Now, what I don't know is, and I wouldn't be surprised, maybe there's an external company that does the magazine and, they hired them and whatever. Maybe they have 50 people working on the magazine and nothing's automated. And as from Midjourney's perspective, it's just a marketing cost. But the Midjourney team, if they were the people actually putting together the magazine, and maybe they are, you could automate the vast majority of this. Last
week, we were talking about Dungeons and Dragons and the worry that I personally have of the human touch being taken out of creating an adventure and even just being an editor of a book or layout artist or artist for the art in these books and every other job associated with them. And then here's a physical magazine that you're subscribed to that has nearly no human intervention.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll admit that feels a little scary to me.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this, this disruption of the creative industries, and the question is sort of like, what is the future of human creativity? Obviously, AI has made remarkable strides in the recent years. Just like with the last year in the Midjourney magazine, from the first issue to last issue, there's no comparison in the quality of what it's producing. And now we have AI that's composing music. We've had it's Suno.
Yeah.
And there's a new version of Suno since last we talked about it. But I don't know if you played with the newer version. It's continuing to improve.
Okay.
Obviously generating visual art like Midjourney, writing scripts. That's been a hot topic in the Hollywood arena. Just like you were talking about
Notebook LM, where our own job here, if you want to call it a job, can be automated away.
We pretend that one doesn't exist.
Oh, okay, great.
It's just easier that way. But AI is increasingly taking on roles that were once considered the, exclusive domain of human talent. I don't think we can deny that. We can
gnash our teeth all we want.
We can try to stop it. We can say that you want your farm to table Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. That's fine,
right.
But there are dungeon masters losing their jobs because of AI. So I don't know, what does that mean for the artists, the musicians, the filmmakers, and all of the creators? Is AI simply enhancing creativity, or is it threatening to just replace it entirely? And maybe even more importantly, there's this question, I think, that can a machine truly replicate the depth of emotion and the soul that human creators bring to their work? Because that arguably that is art.
Right. And we talked a few episodes ago about having a robot, humanoid, or dog or whatever on the scene in, especially dangerous situations, to be a reporter in the field. Would that help capture some of the raw emotion of the scene? I think that AI generators are better than I am at writing emotional sort of dialogue, but maybe something over a long-term consistency starts to fall off. Still, if you take the average person, like not a professional writer, and you were to do a writing contest on a subject between ChatGPT and them, I think we're at a point where the average person is going to be run circles around by AI writers. AI artists, boy, if I were to show what some of my art looks like, it's at the stick figure stage or barely past that. When I try my absolute damnedest to do the best job that I possibly can at drawing, and I really sit down and I try and I take my time, it looks awful. Yeah. It still looks like I was joking about trying to be bad on purpose. Obviously, Midjourney does a better job making art than I do. I know some people object to calling that art or making, or certainly the two words together. But if you want something that's going to be pretty to look at, that's vaguely about a prompt that had been given to you 1 billion times out of 1 billion, I'll take Midjourney over me.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Is that this isn't a theoretical conversation that we're having. This is happening right now. There was a story in the news last week about a famous Indian filmmaker. His name's Ram Gopal Varma. But he announced that going forward, he's only going to use AI generated music in his films, and he's got a new film coming out relatively soon. And this caused a bit of a stir.
Has to be just a attention grabbing headline, though, right?
It's a little bit of that.
He's doing that as a stunt. He has to be.
I don't know. So he talks about how he throws it down. He talks about how annoying it is to work with musicians and how they're flaky and they don't show up on time and it's really expensive.
All right.
And I guess he played with
Never
Suno.
hung over.
He played with Suno over the weekend and he's just like, yeah, you know what? That's good enough. And I think it goes to one of your points where you were talking about, Midjourney is way better than the average person. When we think of generating scores, we think of Hans Zimmer and
Michael Giacchino, I think might be vaguely how you pronounce his last name. He did like the Star Trek movie. He's done a bunch of them. There are some very famous composers, but there aren't that many that are at this sort of top of their field. And your sort of interpretation here is that maybe those people are better, at least for now, but then one or two rungs down the ladder from them, Suno's is good.
Yeah, Danny Elfman was the other one I was just thinking about.
Sure, yeah.
When we listen to these things, we say, well, that's no Hans Zimmer, that's no Danny Elfman, who's the Star Wars score person.
I should absolutely have this.
John Williams.
Yeah. Did Jurassic Park, Superman. Yeah.
Downtown. I just rewatched Jurassic Park. Excellent. I haven't watched the full thing. It really holds up. That's an aside. But
that's practical effects for you. None of that AI. Okay. Well, there's a little bit of CG.
We agree that, the AI doesn't compete with John Williams today. But maybe it competes with like the average score you hear watching CSI insert random city here today. Or
a low budget commercial from a local appliance store.
Yeah. And so we have, this famous Indian filmmaker saying, all right, going forward, I'm just going to use AI generated music. Screw it. I'm all in.
Well, this is one person who's doing that, and I think as a stunt. Maybe there's a future where more like famous directors and so on start getting involved in these kinds of things. But at least in the West, so you're talking about India, maybe there is a different cultural acceptance of some of these things or lack of awareness where there isn't as much of a hubbub yet or something. I'm not aware of it. But like in the West, in America, I think everyone's riled up enough that if you were to see, I don't know, John Williams say, for the next one, I'm not going to do it. I trained Suno off of my music and we're going to see what happens. People would be upset.
Well, it sparked a lot of debate as these stories tend to do. And again, maybe he is just an agent provocateur or maybe it's legitimate. But I think at a minimum, the fact that we are debating it is a testament to the incredible capabilities today of the AI. That it is a conversation worth having.
If it wasn't good enough to be a threat.
That's
correct. What you're saying. Okay.
And it raises that concern about the loss of jobs, again, something we talk about a ton here, and the potential devaluation of human creativity, in this instance, in the music industry. But, on the stunt front, there was another story in the last week, James Cameron, or Jim, as his friends call him, a very famous American filmmaker. I was debating, what is he best known for these days? So the thing I
just said, Americans would be upset if, American filmmakers were to be doing this.
Yeah, the person who created the film that maybe inspired this podcast, the Terminator films I'm referring to.
Yeah.
And Titanic. And I think Avatar is what he's best known for these days by the masses. But anyways, James Cameron, he recently joined the board of Stability, potentially still a Midjourney competitor, in order to move forward the state of the art on generating images and video for the purposes of use in film. And he's previously spoken out against this and taking tons of caution on, what might be AI's impact on humanity as a whole and focused in on the filmmaking industry. But kind of seems, and by the way, super, super, super rich guy. I don't buy that this is a paycheck thing.
He doesn't need
this isn't a publicity
money.
stunt
He
so
doesn't
that
need
more people see
AI
Avatar
money.
3 because he joined the board of Stability.
Right.
He famously funded a giant mission to go down and actually see the wreck of Titanic, where he just spends billions and billions of his own dollars to go on these journeys to, I don't know, scratch itches he has. So
you're saying it's not a play for money for him. He really believes that this is the future and that's something to be embraced.
Yeah, it appears that he's embracing the technology and that he sees its potential in filmmaking. And of course, Stability is over the moon. They see his involvement as a huge
quite the
boost. Right.
Yeah.
And the goal here is to push the boundaries of what's possible with visual effects.
So for a money play, on a similar sort of note, runway.ml, you can make little clips of videos. It's pretty good. It's in the top tier of video creators that are out there right now, especially because OpenAI still hasn't shown us how to get, gosh, I don't even remember what it's called now. Sora. Runway is going to be offering filmmakers up to $1 million if they use their thing to make movies. I think the idea is so the grants are between $5,000 and $1 million, but they're trying to fund like short films and feature length movies using this technology as much as possible, or presumably like up to the entirety of the movie.
Well,
so we've got James Cameron working with Stability AI, the makers of like Stable Diffusion and so on. Runway's giving people up to $1 million to make a movie using just AI. Yeah, is it game over for human-made movies then? Is that what you're kind of getting at? Or are we saying that this is a tool that we're going to be more and more using? And
it's a
not even think
trend
of the jobs that are lost. This becomes more of the workflow that everybody uses all the time.
Yeah, I think, pretty much exactly. That it's not just, I guess the difference is that AI is progressing past the point of just being a tool for efficiency. And it's definitely in the realm now of creative partner, something you've discussed, leveraging it as a creative partner. And then in some cases today, it's becoming a replacement for human creators. And those are the edge cases, but I think it's reasonable to suggest that we're going to see more of those edge cases.
Being eaten away at pretty quickly, though.
Yeah. But, there's this fundamental question behind all of it, which is still that can AI truly, capture human emotion? Art in all its forms has always been a medium for expressing the human experience.
Sure.
Emotions.
In literature class, you read some book and then you have to think about what the author was thinking about that. Even if the author has famously said, I wasn't thinking of anything in particular, you still have to write your essay on what the person was thinking.
On top of essay, with the imagery.
Does that become even more of a meaningless exercise, or a meaningless exercise at all, shall we say, if a person didn't write that? What was the computer really trying to evoke about human experience when it wrote such and such?
Well, yeah, the critics argue that while AI can mimic the styles and the patterns, it lacks consciousness. It is not self-aware, and therefore it cannot, by definition, infuse any genuine emotion into its creations.
But to the point that I just said, sometimes an artist, like I'm especially thinking of a writer, can write something and say, there was no deeper meaning to this. I just wrote this because I thought it would be cool or because it fit in the story. And then, lit teachers for years and years after say, and this is the thing that they were trying to show. An AI could write something that has no deeper underlying meaning that could still stir emotions in people.
Absolutely. It is possible, but I don't know whether it's intentional or not. And some would argue that famous, we'll call them an artist, who created something that they said had no meaning, but you say has tons of meaning, and you wrote 18 essays on, perhaps, that meaning was, the result of their human experience up to that point. That was the combination of the nature and nurture of their human experience as they express it. And they didn't spend too much time thinking about it. And yes, you could interpret it that way. But there's this subtlety and nuance that, at least at this point, we believe is part of these human created works. And it's hard to imagine the AI bringing that same subtlety and nuance. And they can't bring it from the raw human experience because they don't have the raw human experience. At best, they have interpretations of it, which is the works
written
that they've
word
trained on.
Of the entirety of the internet, which includes a lot of the human experiences. People pour out their feelings onto digital pages.
And there's also a concern that So we move into this future where we are relying on all this AI generated content. It's generating our movies, our music, our D&D campaigns, our podcasts. Sure. But does everything just become, homogenized? Since the AI models, they're all trained on existing works, aren't they kind of going to mean
that there's no new genre, there's no new frontier to sort of conceptually
They're going to
explore.
Perpetuate the current trends and styles rather than fostering some sort of true innovation. I don't think we've really seen true innovation come out of AI yet. If you have an example, I'd love to hear it. But
it's made some wild art, but has it really innovated in the field of art?
Has it started a new movement?
Right.
Okay. Right. Wow. This is the new style, the new genre, the new way we're going to present things as it originated from AI solely, not from a human collaborating.
The skyscrapers haven't started being made in a new style because a new architectural wave has started from AI.
Yeah. And so this growing trend of AI in these creative fields, it's causing a lot of tensions in various industries that see their jobs potentially becoming less valuable at a minimum and potentially going away. Even in our own field of software development and AI development, there are concerns. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal this week about how hard it is for CS grads to get a job right now. And these are CS grads from top schools with top GPAs, and they're just not getting offers. Whereas,
why would you need to hire a junior software development engineer when I can use Claude and plop out a whole project that would have taken a kid a week and a half to put together and it took me 2 minutes?
There was a moment I remember, I'm going to say around 2010, 2012, where I was working at a startup where first we would hire anyone. You didn't have to have any experience. You just had to want to learn. That was enough. Wow. And then more than that, there was a $10,000 bonus if you, as a current employee of that company, could identify the person to come work there, where they were going to get a giant fat salary. $10,000 because you couldn't hire people. You couldn't convince people to come and work on these software development projects, even if they didn't know anything. And I may have captured a few of these referrals, but that has definitely, completely flipped. And so anyways, there's this growing tension in lots of different sectors. We talked previously about the SB 1047, the California law that has passed their legislation that requires puts a whole bunch of requirements on these large foundational models that they define primarily as costing more than $100 million to train. But now, interestingly, the actors in Hollywood and even SAG have come out now to try to convince Governor Newsom, who's yet to actually sign this into law, that we need to make this a law. And I'm a little befuddled by why the actors want this to exist. And I think it's just that they want the beginnings of some legislative framework that restricts how far AI can do. And I've read the bill. What it restricts is that AI can't take over the world, basically. It can't cause mass casualties and mass Armageddon. That's all it's doing. There's nothing in it that's protecting the actors, but they want the beginnings of some structure.
Something on the books of maybe not everything AI all the time.
Yeah. And so there's a fear that if AI advancement goes unchecked, that it's just going to undermine these professions that rely on human creativity and expressions, because we're definitely seeing the beginnings of this now, in beyond just the potential, we'll call it the economic impact of people losing their jobs, the integration of AI into the creative processes, it raises a lot of ethical issues, which we've discussed on many of the episodes here.
We have.
We start with the intellectual property rights, because all of this wonderful AI material, or not wonderful AI material, was all trained on other artists' works, and by and large they were not compensated for that.
Right.
Part one. Part two, who owns the work that's actually generated by the AI?
I think the US has said you can't copyright AI generated anything.
This is true. But if you go in and modify it, if you use it in a collaborative way, you
Right.
can still copyright it. And similarly to the copyright angle, you can't get a patent on anything that the AI innovates. The AI wrote the patent. The AI cannot hold a patent, but the collaboration angles is. But anyway, but who owns the output? We don't know.
If an AI could get a patent, I don't mean like legally is allowed to, because not, but if that weren't a problem and an AI could successfully write up a patent and it gets accepted, it gets filed, someone had to cut the check to, go through the whole process. Doesn't that literally mean an AI is creating something new, is being creative? Unless, the people at the patent office were half asleep at the wheel, you're not supposed to be able to get a patent without having made a materially new thing. Even if everything is built on the shoulders of everything that has come before that, and a lot of stuff is kind of just mixing up the existing ingredients, you shouldn't be able to get a patent unless you really actually made something new.
I would agree with that, but thus far the examples have all been someone heavily prompting the AI around an area and the AI then writing that patent and figuring out how it might, accomplish something. Just like you go to Claude and say, build my Kubernetes cluster. Someone went to Claude and said,
sure,
I want a patent for automating the generation of Kubernetes clusters based upon forecasted workloads, and it spit out a patent.
And the idea there being, because the AI didn't think of that prompt, it isn't creating something.
Yeah. And with AI in the creative fields, there's also the question of how it impacts the value of art, right? If art can be generated instantly by machines, does it therefore diminish the value of art created by humans? Or we're just going to flood the entire market with AI generated content, making it harder for human artists to get any recognition.
I'd say that's absolutely true in at least two different ways. So one, which I have friends that have specifically complained about this, and then I went and I saw exactly what they were talking about it, and now I'm complaining about it too, is there are a variety of things that if you search for on the internet today, most of the image results of it that you get back are going to be AI generated stuff and not necessarily super coherent or good AI generated stuff. Yeah. So the internet is being polluted, and we're literally diluting. Like, if there is a real artist that has something in there, it's actually harder to find real people that have made real things on certain subjects already. So that's diminishing that. Also, there are a bunch of people who may not be the best artist in the world, but they're on Fiverr or Upwork or whatever, and they'll help make, whether it be something for your company or you want to, have a character drawn for your D&D campaign or whatever it ends up being. And then you just go to a Midjourney instead. And that's taking money out of people's hands for sure at that point. So I think I very much agree with you. We are actually diminishing the literal value of art created by humans. The one way where I would disagree with you is I think a lot of modern art is absolutely a scam. I really
the giant
think
white painting.
The giant white painting with a dot in the center or whatever, I 1,000,000% think
now, you can't tell me AI could ever come up with that.
I think it absolutely could. And so I think this would be diminishing the value of real art in a very positive way, because I think if we're just taking some guy puts a one stripe on the thing and, that sold for $15 million. There's no way that's not money laundering. And so I want that job to be taken away by AI, because it's so infuriating that some of these things, I'm sure some people really love a lot of modern art. I'm sorry if I made you upset. Most of that stuff I absolutely cannot stand. It seems like it's just money laundering. And so I want that art being diminished in value, but I'm sad about the rest of it being diminished.
I do think that it could potentially lead to a giant reset where, if we flood the internet with AI generated
everything,
whether it's genius or crap or whatever, just everything. If 99% of every image is
real stuff.
Yeah, it's all fake. It's all fake. Then
it's
maybe
the dead internet theory made truly manifest.
It's true. And no one disagrees anymore, because you can't. Everything you search for, you just get back pure garbage that maybe that will force us to actually innovate. and to reset and to re-examine, what we value in these things and find a new future for it all. I don't know. And, we'll continue this discussion as on our journey to self-awareness, because you've been listening to They Might Be Self-Aware.
We might be.
It might be, maybe not. I'll go on a slight aside there. I was going down a thread, related, unrelated, that we've already achieved singularity. We just, it's not widely recognized, but we've already achieved it. And this started by, I was reading about, so Google has some of the largest context windows around, right? These million token context windows. And it's really, really fast. And so people are asking, why? How are they doing this? How are they doing it so economically? How is it so fast? And someone replied that it's their hardware.
Yeah, they're not using NVIDIA.
They're using
chips.
all
they have
proprietary
their own
hardware
that they did
with their TPUs, their tensor processing units. And if you go in and read about the creation of this hardware, they used a reinforcement learning model to do all of the chip layouts, where they were maximizing the efficiency. And these are layouts that no human, when we talk about innovation, no human ever came up with these ideas. And now they keep the reinforcement learning model keeps generating better and better layouts that then they go and produce, which is where a lot of their
and then the stronger hardware has more juice to think of an even better layout.
And one of the key requirements for achieving the singularity is that it starts improving itself. The AI starts improving itself.
All right.
And the suggestion is that the AI has started improving itself. And here's
it's helping
real
improve
example.
Layouts for hardware that powers it, but it's not saying, here's the new code of my new mind that will be 10 times as powerful. Unless it is. Maybe it is. Or at least
to a degree
helping,
it is, because that's the efficiency of the tensor processing units. I want to be able to process things more efficiently, and that is the problem that it's solving. I want it to be lower power consumption. Yeah. I want to be able to think faster, consume less, think faster, more. So maybe we already are self-aware. We don't know yet, but we're on the case. Gosh darn it, and we will find out. And if you want to find out, like and subscribe. It's the easiest way. It's free for now. Maybe not. Maybe one day we start charging. You never know. I read that podcasts are starting to charge for access to their archives. Apparently, that's a new trend. I don't know. For today, we're free. One day only sale. Hit the subscribe button, and you're locked in. But yeah,
8 years today.
Good conversation. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Hunter.
All right, we'll be back soon for another episode of
They Might Be Self-Aware.